Do you have a job offer in the US and wondering if this can help you to get a green card? Well, maybe it can with a process called PERM. Now, PERM stands for the Program Electronic Review Management, but really what it is the most popular way for people to get a green card through their work in the United States. So PERM is actually the first of a few steps to get a green card. What it is a test of the US job market to show that there are no US workers that are able to do that job. If your employer can prove this, they can then move on to the next steps of filing a visa petition, and then eventually you can apply for the green card. So how does an employer test the job market for a PERM case? Good question. The very first step is drafting a good job description. The PERM process is all about how you describe your job and the minimum requirements for the role. Once you've established a detailed job description and all of the minimum requirements like the education, experience, and special skills you need for the job, you can then take that job description and move on to the first official step with the government. The first step with the government is requesting a prevailing wage. The prevailing wage is the wage that the government thinks is appropriate for your job in your location with the same minimum requirements. What the prevailing wage is will depend on where you are, what kind of job you have, and what your specific employer requires for that job. These days, prevailing wage determinations are taking at least 6 to 9 months to complete, so this is really important to get started well in advance. Once you receive your prevailing wage determination, most people will move on to the next step, which is testing the US job market. The way you test the US job market is by actually placing job advertisements in several different venues. There are mandatory venues like Sunday newspaper ads or a posting on a state job bank. Then there are also optional venues for example, professional occupations, which require additional advertisements. For professional roles, you could advertise on a website, the employer's website, or maybe do some on-campus recruiting or radio ads, depending on what is appropriate for the role. The test of the job market is based on these ads that you place to recruit US workers. The ads need to be up usually for at least a month, and then you need to wait another month to see if any applications come in. If after this time you don't have any qualified US workers applying for the job, you can move on to the next step of the PERM process. Once you've determined you don't have qualified US workers, you finalize the online application, which is Form ETA 9089. This process is done entirely electronically, where you submit all of the application information related to your case and gets reviewed by an officer. Right now, processing time for PERM applications can take over a year. Again, many steps here will take a long time, and it's important to start your PERM process well in advance. Once you receive a certified PERM application, the ETA 9089, you can then move on finally to filing with immigration. The next step for most people is going to be filing the form visa petition by your employer. This confirms the offer of employment, as well as your company's ability to pay your wage, the prevailing wage set at the start of the process, and also confirms your qualifications, including copies of your educational or experience documentation as appropriate. The next step is going to be filing the actual green card application. Now, there's something very important to keep in mind here. Employment-based green card visas in the US are limited based on different categories and different nationalities. Depending on which employment-based category you're in and which country you come from, there will be different waiting periods for when you can finally move to the last step of applying for your green card. For some people, there's no wait at all, and they can apply for the green card at the same time as the visa petition filed by their employer. For others, particularly for people from China and India, there may be very long waiting times, sometimes over a decade, before you can actually file for your green card here in the US. The ability to actually apply for the green card is going to be based on your particular priority date. A priority date is set by one of two things: either the filing of the I-140 petition, or in PERM cases, the filing of the labor certification application, the ETA 9089. Once you've set your priority date, you will then refer to the Department of State's Visa Bulletin, which lists all of the waiting periods for different categories. Find your priority dates on the chart and you'll know when you're ready to file. If you have any questions about what your priority date is or when you'll be ready to apply for your green card, go to manifestlaw.com and we'll help you out. So as you can see, there are a lot of steps to a PERM labor certification process, and each of them can take a very long time. For some people, you might be able to get your PERM green card within a few years. Other people, for example, those who have the long waiting times, might take a decade or more to finally get a green card in hand. The other question that people have is, how much is this going to cost? Well, the thing is that for the first stage of the process, the PERM labor certification, the employer is actually required to pay all of the fees. Later on in the process, you can actually pay for the fees related to your own green card application. The fees in the PERM process are usually a few different things. One are advertising costs to test the job market when your employer places those ads. The other are filing fees for the US government, which takes place once you reach the second and third stages. And finally, you might have some administrative fees for translations or professional evaluations if those are needed for your case. So as you can see, the PERM labor certification process can be lengthy and very technical. It's important to have the right lawyer working on your case so that you can avoid any pitfalls and make sure that you get your employment-based green card as soon as possible. Reach out to Manifest Law and schedule your free consultation today, and we'll get started on your PERM labor certification green card.